I'm going to be talking about chatbots, specifically about Slack chatbots. If you want to play along, I'm going to do some filler whilst you go to that bit.ly link. It's a quick sign up similar to all the various bits and bobs you've seen where you can kind of join the Slack group and you can have a bit of a play. So, all right, I'm going to make it a little bit interactive. Who here uses Slack either in private or at work? Or at equivalent HipChat? Okay, cool, so quite a lot of people. All right, who uses Slack a little bit too much? There we go. Okay, all right. So one of the things I want to kind of show you a little bit is how you could possibly make your life a little bit easier and also justify to your boss why you need to pay for Slack. This also applies if you use HipChat. There's all sorts of equivalents with that. I know that some people like being tied to Atlassian a little bit too much. If that's what you do, fair play to you. All right, so I'm going to try and do this. This is very disorientating, so you'll have to bear with me. Cool, right, okay. So, that's the sign-up page, if anyone wants to have a quick look. And what we're going to be talking about a little bit today is a chap called Hubot. So, who here has some form of bot associated with their Slack? Okay, a couple of you. Who here uses it for work-related, so deployment? One? Cool, right. So this is how I found out about this. At work, we use this for all of our deployment. We have this tied into a specific channel, and then we ask it to do various things, such as kind of whether or not you want to deploy it onto AWS, or if you want to spin up a new test box, or et cetera, that sort of thing. It's quite in-depth, none of which I'm going to cover today. I'm going to do lots of silly things instead, which is far, far more important. Good, so first step is all of these links will be part of the slides that I send out. There's loads and loads of documentation on this. I'm also going to write in CoffeeScript, which I appreciate is neither my domain nor your domain, so that's going to be fun. If you've got npm installed for some mad reason, you can pretty much get started straight away by using a generator, and once you've done that, you can then start cracking. So we're going to add a configuration, and I've been told that a really popular person in Sheffield is Jessica Ennis-Hill. Apparently that means something to someone. A quick Google on the train meant something. So we're going to call our bot Jessica, and we're going to activate it. Cool. And this is where my 4G tether works. Okay, what that's going to do is it's going to give us an API token, which is super important. So the bot that we're going to be running is going to be running locally on my machine, but likewise this could be sat on AWS, it could be sat on DigitalOcean, any form of VPN that you've got set up, depending on how redundant or how important it is to you. So we're going to go and grab that API key, kill all the tests that I've been doing. Oh, great. Not use the old key. Can someone tell me when I get to the equals? Cool. I'm going to try that. Cool. Right, so what we've done is I've done that npm generator locally, and I have a CoffeeScript set up in my local directory. And what that's done is it's passed through in an environment variable the API key associated with Jessica. And hopefully what that means is that in this tab up here, we can now start speaking to Jessica. So let's add Jessica into the channel. Cool, so she's now going to be in general, which can never end badly. And at the minute, if I go and say hello to Jessica, along with everyone else that's going to spam this now, she's not going to do anything, right? Which is fair enough. You know, we've not told her to do anything, so you know, why should she be nice to me? So we've got a module.exports, and we've passed in a robot object. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about badgers. So when Jessica hears badger, she's going to return saying badgers. Badgers? We don't need no stinking badgers. Which is highly important. Right, cool. So if we go into here, oh no, not main Slack. Don't do that. And if we now refresh the bot, no, go away. And it now responds, badgers, Badgers, we don't need no stinking badgers. Good, this is working. Right, that's it, that's the end of the talk. Thank you very much for listening. What we're going to do instead is that you can do some really cool things. So, firstly, you can see that it's listening out for badgers. If we now say instead, at Jessica badgers, it won't. Oh no, it does. There you go. Cool. Didn't think of that. But anyway, so it's listened out for that keyword. Oh, go away. Right. So instead, we can do some input. So prizes for knowing what this quote comes from. So we're going to say open the something doors. Again, we refresh the bot. Jessica, open the car doors. Opening the car doors. If we now do open the pod bay doors, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. So again, I know that this is CoffeeScript, I know it's JavaScript and everyone hates it, but hopefully everyone can kind of at least read that if it's not in tiny writing. We can switch on the input that you've got and then do some really clever things to say, given this input, do this other thing. But that's pretty boring. Let's do something a little bit more topical. Right, so football fans. Is there any football fans in here, which never goes down particularly well at a tech meetup? We've got one. Good, I'm not alone. Fantastic. Right, are you a local football fan? Liverpool, right, so not at all. Good, so I was hoping that this would be slightly typical. So what we're going to do instead is that we're going to ask who won the football between Sheff Wednesday and Sheff United, or whether or not it's a draw. Now when I did this, United lost every single time. That's probably, I was going to say that sounds about right. So instead, right, Jessica, who won the football? Wednesday, told you. Again, we'll try and make sure that looks like it's at least a little bit random. United, good. So again, you can kind of see that switching, we're doing some randomness into it, and again, not all that interesting. What's probably far more appropriate to this crowd is, I'm assuming everyone's the IT crowd, and the usual response when talking about football to my colleagues ends up in this. Jessica, talk to me about football. If I can spell properly. Now the ball's over there. There we go. Good. So we can do text back, we can do images, we can do URLs, we can do pretty much anything that you can kind of send back through, which is pretty cool. But what about things when people change the topic? So in general, we've got what's a very corporate Slack here. It's company-wide announcements and work-based matters. If anyone who uses Slack in a large company knows that general is definitely not a safe place. So this is definitely not for work-based matters. It's for those people who decide to actually venture into general. So general is not safe. That's what we're going to set the topic. And Jessica asks, general is not safe. That's a paddling. So we can pick up things like that, which is pretty cool. But again, what about things like people entering or removing from rooms? So this is going to be quite difficult with just me as the admin because I can't leave general. But the idea being is that you can start picking up to say when things have come in and when people go. So if you're on the Slack channel, I know a couple of you are, if you want to join a room or create a room, then leave it and you can kind of see the public version of that and go mad. But we're all good developers, right? So as a result, what we need to do is we need to think about error handling. You know, all those testers that come back to us and think this is very important. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to handle some errors. So when we find an error, so in this case, we're going to go and ask Jessica to fall over, who as an athlete is far more topical than I realised, is we're going to try and attempt to go to HTTPS kaboom. So let's go see what happens when we go there. As we know, that's not a valid URL, and as a result, we're going to get an error back. So Jessica, fall over. We've picked up the fact that there's an exception. We can then report that directly back to the person who asked it. So in this case, does not compute. And we can also do a log out to say, hey, had problems with the midnight train. But again, that's not all that topical. What about tea? Everyone loves tea, and I've also changed this to say Yorkshire tea because we're in Yorkshire. And as a result, everyone loves to have a cup of tea, and so I'm going to go ask Jessica, Yorkshire tea, please. And that's great. But what about if we have too much tea? So we're going to ask again. 2 cups of tea, that's completely understandable. 3 cups of tea, we're getting pretty high. 4 cups of tea, that's enough. Bedtime now. The way that this works is there is a concept within Hubot of a robot brain, which is a little bit of a way of storing persistence. So in this little bit of code here, we're going to go and fetch from the brain the value called total cups. We're then going to go and just switch on that, so that just unwraps to make sure something exists or not. If the number of tea had is greater than 2, we're going to say, no, that's enough, bedtime now. If not, why not? And we're going to then increment the number of cups of tea we've had. To reset it, we're going to go say, Jessica, bedtime. And it goes to sleep. And now if we go and say, hey, Yorkshire tea, please. We've gone to sleep and we're more than happy to have another cup of tea. Because I'm the last one speaking, and I know what happens after every form of meetup, we're going to tell Jessica that we're going to the pub. And that's it. That's Chatbots.